Hey now, welcome to the dirty side of the track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. Today, a few minutes ago, was the Bahrain Grand Prix. I enjoyed it. Rob, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really did. And is it because it was a great antidote to what we'd seen in the last race? Maybe. Who can tell? All you can do is judge it on merit. Did I watch that and enjoy it? Yes, I did. And do we have lots to talk about today? Yes, we do. So that is night and day from poor old Suzuka. So I will take it.
Well, we have so much to talk about, we might as well jump in.
Well, before we jump in, though, Brian, we need to welcome new listeners to the Dirty Side. If anyone's picking us up for the first time, structure will be news and social, where we'll pour over all the stuff that caught our eye. Brian will have been off down into the depths of the internet to bring us some videos for the video vault. Then we'll pick the bones out of the race weekend. Then we'll preview Saudi, and then we'll have a rest.
I'm so excited that F1 is back. I love this triple header, and I like the fact that we're getting the poorly timed races out of our system early, for selfishly for me, so that we can get some,
Oh,
regular morning races. Like this one
I
was fine, but like Japan too early, China too early. Like let's get these. I like Jeddah, and I like the timing of this one coming up. So we'll get to that in a minute, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, it will. So let's jump into all the real highbrow news that we found. Tell you what, if you need a dump, make sure you're not a race car driver. That means you're going to be late for the national anthems because Carlos Sainz was given a fine after he turned up late to the playing of the national anthem, and he said that he'd been experiencing stomach issues that required a trip to the toilet. Now we all know what that's like. He said, "I'm late. I'm sorry. I was 5 seconds late, and to be 5 seconds late, I've got to pay $10,000. But whatever. I'll probably get another fine for saying this, but S happens. So he's now probably going to get another fine for swearing. Now, this things like this, they always amuse me. It got all this reaction. FIA, it's draconian. These fines, blah 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 blah. Do you know what? Apparently, if Williams had just contacted race control and said Carlos is going to be a little bit late due to a medical issue, it would have been fine. But because they didn't inform him, they get fined.
And I mean,
Unlike Dems de brakes, you got to pay them.
and we always complain about the on-track racing needs black and white rules. So I know this is off track and this isn't racing, but they need black and white rules.
Yeah.
I think this is fine.
Although, um, George Russell and the rest of the drivers are apparently concerned that the governing FIA appears to be heading in an unstable direction because this came hot on the heels after FIA's deputy president for sport, Robert Reid, resigned, citing breakdown in standards in the governing body, and he put quite strong resignation.
He
Or
did.
resignation. He put a statement out on social media, didn't he?
Yep, he did. And he said, when I took this role, it was to serve the FIA's members, not to serve power, he said. Over time, I've witnessed a steady erosion of the principles we promised to uphold. Decisions are being made behind closed doors, bypassing the very structures and people the FIA exists to represent. My resignation is not about personalities, it is about principles. Motorsport deserves leadership that is accountable, transparent, and member driven. I can no longer, in good faith, remain part of a system that does not reflect those values. Yeah. So
Ouch.
this I mean, if I hope Susie Wolf is printing these up on flyers for her candidacy for the FIA presidency against Mohammed Ben Sulayem, because that's what people are asking for a change from. And so we have here on the dirty side been kind of off put by a lot of Mohammed Ben Sulayem's rulings and the way he's operated the FIA. So having the deputy president step down in this fashion is not good for his candidacy. Now, that said, he'll probably try to strong arm his way back into the role. But I would love to see Susie Wolf or whomever would run against him with a good campaign because the drivers seem to be ready for a change of the FIA leadership. And I mean, I'm here to watch the drivers, not here to watch Mohammed Ben Sulayem.
True. Right, you can lead us into this one, Brian, because you found this one.
Yeah, so, all right. A lot of you are regular listeners, and we appreciate that. We've been doing this for a while, and we appreciate everyone who is part of the dirty side with us, just fans of F1, having a chat. And so I would ask if you have a moment, could you go to your favorite podcast platform and give us a review? Give us a rating, whatever you want to do. We know it's not common for everyone to do that, and we have quite a few out there so far today, and we appreciate those. The reason I ask is, as I was thinking about this the other day, I went out and Spotify, it's a nice 4.8, about 50 reviews, which is a lot for people to spend time and go put a star. Out there, we're also 4.8 on Apple, about half as many ratings, but there was a handful of reviews, and one of them caught my attention. And I think it's a sign that the dirty side has finally arrived. Forget the fact for a minute that this happened.
This is Jacques Villeneuve, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
Forget the fact we had the 1997 world champion. Forget that this happened.
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
I mean, that's amazing, but let's forget that. We're going to forget about this too.
Hey, this is Doug McKagan, and you're listening to the Dirty Side of the Track podcast.
I mean, like, we've had Nate Saun, we've had so many guests. We are so thankful. Paul, thank you. All the listeners, thank you. But someone decided that we are, quote, two creeps. Racist and always misinformed. And I love this. We are so big that people are making up reviews about us now. And I thought this was great because while we may be two creeps and we may be often misinformed, I don't think we're particularly racist. So I just thought this was hilarious. And I found it funny. I laughed. I shared it with my family and we laughed and laughed. And so for our first honestly angry made up review, I'll take it.
I mean, yeah, this one did get me a little angry because I was like you said, you can accuse us of being two creeps. You know, lots of people do. You can accuse us of being misinformed because we're just two bozos chatting F1. Yeah, it was the racist one that got me. And then, like you said, no, we've become so big now that we're starting to get haters. I was like, okay, if that's how it rolls, then off we go. But, if people would like to maybe tip the scales back the other way, be honest. Not too honest, though.
Anyway,
moving on. So, Jeremy Clarkson and Martin Brundle kind of shared ideas about Japan and overtaking in general. And Clarkson came on and said, "I've had an idea to make F1 racing more consistently exciting. Don't use tracks where overtaking is difficult." Brundle came back and said, playing a little bit of a joke, I think, on the Clarkson's farm thing. It's like a harvest. You have to be patient. 4 starts this season. We've had 4 different winners. Some football matches are 0-0. Some are 5-4 thrillers. That sport. Change the cars, not the tracks. Now, the reason I bring this up is I kind of agree with Brundle more. Change the cars, not the tracks. I think we've got a lot of good tracks out there. The cars have just outgrown them. They need to look at some of these car sizes, bring them down a bit, and also just be honest. Look at some circuits that could maybe benefit from another DRS section. I know I'm not the biggest DRS fan in the world if it gives an easy overtake, but also Japan's only got one, and maybe it could benefit from a second one. But the thing that he's saying here about, some football matches can be 0-0. Yeah, Brundle, they can. However, some matches can be 0-0 and be ridiculously exciting because both goalkeepers are doing Danielson, wax on, wax off, just saving every shot that comes near them. So many almost moments. That wasn't Japan last week.
No, it wasn't. No, you're totally right. And, speaking of Japan, a stat that came out that I thought was fascinating because I don't have stats for the race that just finished today, and listener Lee shared this. During the Japanese Grand Prix, in one lap, drivers use the brakes for only 10 seconds, equivalent to 11% of the race, the lowest value in the championship. There are just 2 hard braking points, 4 medium, and 2 light. And we often see at the beginning of the telecast the amount of throttle used, right? How much are on 66% of the lap is taken at full throttle. Okay. I think we may need to start looking at how much is taken under braking. Because if there's not much, there's going to be less chances for overtaking, and especially when you have limited DRS.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it's more that this is a bit of a nothing burger for me. You need to see the full 24 races and say how many seconds are people on the brake. Because if the ones right behind them are like 11 seconds, 12 seconds, 13 seconds, then what's the difference? If Suzuka is 11 seconds on the brake and the next nearest is like a minute and a half on the brakes, then fine. But I think Suzuka it's got two amazing overtaking spots in terms of hard braking, in terms of the chicanes, the hairpin. It could just do with an extra DRS. I don't see why they don't. I know 190R, 130R,
130R,
whatever it is. 130R is already ridiculously fast, but that used to not be able to be taken like flat out. And now
it's like Pouin and Blanchimont at Spa, same thing. Now they're basically at full speed. One other Japanese note, and I know we said we weren't going to revisit, but I did see this, and I don't know if you did, because I'd love your thoughts. I saw this in passing, and Jack Doohan needed help getting out of his car after the race. And I saw the video where from his T-cam where we're watching it, and Esteban had helped him, and one other driver, I can't remember, came over to help him out and then start walking. That was the day after his massive crash. And he clearly wasn't well. And the fact that he couldn't get, I mean, maybe if there'd been an accident, he would have had adrenaline and all that. But at the end of the race, as it all wore off, he could not get out of his car. And if you're not telling me that's a guy worried about losing his job, out there doing maybe something you shouldn't be, that was dangerous. I don't know. I don't know what my point here is. It just was disappointing to me and sad. And I like Jack, and I feel bad that he's out there doing that.
Again, I'm going to file that under Nothing Burger. The medical teams are so strict that there's no way he's getting allowed to race if he's not fit. They're not going to do it. They've got reserve drivers. That would have been a perfect opportunity to throw Colapinto in and just go.
That's his point.
Oh, Jack, you're not well enough.
But if if he says I can't race and they put Colapinto in,
no, it's not the driver's choice. They medically can't race. He would have still had to have done the test that they all have to do about getting in and getting out of the car, right? So he obviously passed that. So it was a bad look. I felt bad for Jack. I feel bad for any driver that when you see them, especially the real super hot ones where they're just all so drained they can barely
vomiting in their helmet and
unconscious. Oh, yeah. But they're also one of 20 elite drivers that get to do this amazing sport with the skill that they have.
That's true.
They choose to do it as well.
And the last note that I had on the news for the week, apparently Mercedes, Audi, and Honda have rejected any changes to the scheduled V6 hybrid engine plans that are coming up in a year's time, 2026, and pushed any changes back to 2030. There'll be further meetings to discuss these changes, but I think not all the engine manufacturers were ready and saying, hey, we can't really do this to each other like at the 11th hour, because this rumor of the V10s is going around.
Yeah, I mean, why on earth would you do that when you've had all this work and build-up to getting both your cars and engines ready for the 2026 regs, and then just have somebody swoop in and go, hey, let's scrap that, let's do V10s. I can totally understand why all these manufacturers went, no.
How much time have we spent developing this already? Negative.
Yeah, you're going to give us a big check to reimburse everything we've spent, and then we'll think about it. But you're not, are you? So
probably wouldn't even fit in the same spot in the car, so then start that over again, too. All right. With that, shall we go to some videos?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
I'll be honest. Not the greatest effort I've ever had in terms of finding videos this week. I've been on the road since the last recording, and so I didn't have too much time. But I have two that I would like to highlight. One in particular, Meet the Team Bosses, Formula One channel, 16 minutes. How can you not like Fred Vasseur? He is so funny and self-deprecating. He is, all of them. I just enjoyed this very much, just getting to see a little bit of their personality, and not necessarily like we know them in a 16-minute video, but some of their answers to the questions give it insight into their personality, and I enjoyed that, because they weren't all just racing questions. It was, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, it's a fun watch. The other one... and we talk about it a lot, but this was special. No, we aren't reviewing that GP on the Lollipop Man channel. Lollipop Man kind of took the approach we took last week when they put together their comic, except they brought in friend of the show Valtteri to participate, and I thought it was hilarious.
Genius. It was absolutely genius. We should have done something like this. I mean, I know we got close to not wanting to review the race, but they fully went like, no, we're not doing it.
We're not Jack doing it. All right, with that, we're closing it up and moving on to the weekend. All right.
Okay, so then race weekend came around. FP1 had reserve drivers everywhere. I got really confused. I forgot this was happening. I thought I tuned in for the wrong session. I was looking at the timing board. I was like, what are all these names? I don't recognize anybody. Oh, hang on a minute. Every car is basically doing one of your normal drivers, one of your reserve drivers or rookies or whatever they are.
Yeah, 6. There were 6 reserve drivers in there for FP1. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But Bahrain is a known track. The youngsters know it.
Yep.
And it's a good place. And that you're not penalizing your current drivers who need to learn it. So it's a good opportunity.
But other than that, not a lot happened. Paul, I haven't listened to his review yet, but I'm pretty sure he'll, do his normal view of FP1, that it's boring. Let's move on. FP2, talk about talk about me having a Nostradamus moment here and having some foreshadowing, although it wasn't really hard. I just wrote what I saw in FP2. And that was McLaren are very quick. Russell is best of the rest. I think that's going to come back as we talk about the race later.
I think you may have even used that for your fantasy team a little bit. I looked over at Beans Mean Signs.
Yeah. I did. I swapped out some stuff this week. But Hajar in FP2, and it's going to happen again in FP3, was the best of the 4 Red Bull drivers. And I know it's 2 different teams, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He was the quickest of the 4 of them. And in FP3, he did it again. This boy has pace. And I know when we get to the race, it didn't quite translate on the race day for him, but this guy, they said it on the commentary, he's just got raw 1-lap pace. And it will come with time, the race pace.
I love watching him. We said this last week. We said this after Japan. We are both becoming Isaac Hajar fanboys. He's fun to watch out there on the track, and he does it in a way where he's aggressive yet still reasonable, if that makes sense, where he's not, elbows out and nothing beyond it. He's fast, he finds the line, and he pushes people, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. I'm massively becoming a fan of his, and he's doing it consistently. So, yeah, FP3, it was the McLaren boys again, but this time Charles pushed George down the order, and like we say, Hajar was best of the Red Bullers. And then Qualy came around, and things changed in terms of track temperature. Wind is just insane at this place. It just intrigues me. I don't know how they deal with it so well. That they'll go out on using a practice session to kind of get their radar ready for braking points. They're all making mental notes of where the braking points are into different corners, where the acceleration points are, and then Mother Nature just comes and just swaps the wind around at 90 degrees, and now suddenly everyone's complaining that now I've got to brake 10 yards further for that corner, or now I've got a tailwind when I used to have a headwind going down that one. I mean, it must just... I don't know, Brian. What do you think? Am I making something out of nothing here, or is it? It's just a skill, isn't it, to react to what the heck's going on with the wind?
I agree with you, and I said this last week. I love this track. I loved when they did the short in 2020, and I love the fact that they can do that. I would like to actually see them do that occasionally. I know do a sprint and put it on the short or something. Just please hook me up with that. But I thought it's a great track. I agree with you. The wind is furious and changes. I'm surprised we don't see more sand on the track with that amount of wind and where it's located. I know there's some, but I would just anticipate more. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they deal with that, especially because we've seen cars, Mercedes last year, where the wind shifts a little and they're going off the track left and right. Now, everybody looked like they were prepared for it and did a fairly good job managing it. It seemed like the biggest problem this weekend was a lot of lockups, a lot of temperature issues with the brakes, the tires, and the track.
Love it.
Yeah, and we had people locking up left and right. Thankfully, no one went into each other because of that, but we had a couple of near misses that were pretty good. But yeah, so as you say, Q1, it was fun to watch. Everything was moving around. Ollie Behrman put in a stinker, which was a surprise to me because he's gonna do all right on Sunday. But man, his Saturday was bad. Liam did not avail himself well of the opportunity on a track he knows better to do something. Especially with Isaac,
but his 10th. DRS failed, didn't it, on his final run?
It did.
It didn't open. So that's those 2 straights where you're allowed to open.
That's true.
I mean, he only missed out on going through to Q2 by a couple. It wasn't even a couple of tenths, I don't think.
But
so
Jack was 5th in Q1. How crazy was that?
I know. And Alex was finally beaten by Carlos. Is he starting to get to grips with the car a bit more? That'd be interesting to keep an eye on. Now, I know we were going to talk about his retirement, which I don't really think is really nothing he can do about that. But, slowly but surely, the smooth operator is starting to get to grips with that Williams a bit more. So, yeah, we lost Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Stroll, who just has had 2 stinkers of qualifiers in a row. Japan, it didn't even look like he knew which way to drive around the circuit.
There was some comment on the team setup for his car that it was a team issue, not a Lance issue, but that also could be his father saying, say that. I'm sorry, Lance. I don't understand why we're getting so down on Lance so often. He had 2 great races to open the season and then 2 stinkers.
Exactly.
We're in the Lance Stroll cycle is what we are.
Yep, a complete yo-yo driver. Sometimes he's up, sometimes he's down. Right, Q2 opened with spectacular fashion of Ocon going backwards into a barrier. I've got to be honest, when you first see the car marooned there with bits of car everywhere, you think, oh my God, this was a huge smash.
Yeah.
Actually, when you
No.
see it, and it's a bit of a tank slapper. He goes in backwards,
Right.
and obviously, I'm sure it still hurts, but it wasn't as bad as I'd first feared when we kind of you just see that shot of the car in pieces, and you're like, ooh, okay. What do we have here? Doohan was unlucky, right? It was some crazy like blink of an eye that he got dropped down, I think, into 11th. So we lost Doohan, Hadjar, Alonso, Hulkenberg, and Ocon.
I liked seeing the gas man in Q2 finishing third, and again, I recognize the positions are set in Q3, but it's fun to see these teams who can put these laps together, and these guys like the gas man do that. Carlos, back to your point, 7th in Q2, so comfortably through. And I think at this point we realized the Red Bulls really maybe didn't have the pace. When Max and Yuki were 9th and 10th, and I'm watching the TV in Q2, I'm like, oh my God, is this for real? Like, I was waiting for Max to just come through and be like right up there with the McLarens.
Yeah. And this is a weird Q3 for me, got blown out of proportion by a lot of people in terms of the reaction that I think Lando kind of maybe had, and also that maybe his fan base did, which was, it was like, oh, you know, Lando just messed up his final run. Yeah. He ends up coming in 6th, and afterwards it was like, oh, it's like I've never driven a Formula One car. I've had no pace like this entire weekend so far. I'm like, whoa, Lando, come on. I know you're probably really, really emotional. You're saying this stuff off the cuff, but you two have been like rocket ships for every session so far. So, we all thought it was going to be Lando versus Oscar for pole position. So it's a little bit extreme to say that he didn't have any pace, but for whatever reason, he just didn't hook that final lap up. George had gone and put a marker down, which on the timings was a really good lap. And I'm suddenly thinking, is Oscar going to pull one out of the bag here and do this? Because I don't know where that Russell lap came from. That was like a good few tenths of a second quicker than Russell had managed all weekend so far. I think it was a 1:30.009. He was close to being the first driver into the 1:29s, and Oscar said, "Hold my beer," and came charging around the corner.
He did. It was amazing. The McLaren pace, Oscar harnessed it and drove brilliantly, and maybe is 2 corners away from being well out in lead and ahead. That one rain one in Australia, and then the one in Qualy the other couple races ago. But I love the fact that the gas man, 5th before the Mercedes penalties are applied. We'll talk about that in a second. 5th. And I thought that was awesome. And I'm watching this, I'm like, wow. And then I'm fairly certain Martin Brundle called him Pete. I swear to God. Go back and watch Q3 towards the end, and he calls him Pete Gasly. And I'm like, well, that's one way to do it. I mean, we're a couple creeps over here, but we wouldn't call him Pete.
Right from now on. Pete, we got
Pete Gasman?
We got Magnussen from our Canadian adventure the other year. Now we've got Pete Gasman. But yeah, and you had Antonelli sticking it up there in 4th, Leclerc 3rd, Norris down in 6th. Like you say, Red Bull 7th and 10th is just with Williams of Sainz and Hamilton struggling a little bit, kind of made out the top 10. But then came the news that just kind of made me a little angry. And I'm going to maybe have a little bit of a Rob's rant here, which is...
Well, there are 2 things. I'm waiting to see which one of your rant... Okay.
Well, Holt gets his lap time deleted 45 minutes after it happened.
Ridiculous.
Which prevented Albon making it through to Q2.
Right.
Like, the whole thing is just ridiculous and is a really bad look for F1. How can you take 45 minutes? Also, on top of that, Brian, how many people really care about track limits? Like, right now, the 2 sports that I watch, you know, religiously are F1 and football. And both of them are having the joy sucked out of them by overzealous rules and video footage and like, oh, is that car a millimeter over the line, or is that guy's nostril offside and we should disallow a goal? It's like none of these rules came up with the spirit of how they're now being forensically applied. It's like I think the only track limits people really care about are corner cutting and getting an advantage. You shouldn't be allowed to cut through a corner and have all 4 wheels leave the track and cut a corner to get an advantage. If it's quicker to go out wide and swing around a corner, and there isn't a natural deterrent like gravel or dust or whatever out there, why bother? Just let them do it. Just let them drive the fastest way around a track without corner cutting, because all of this forensic, oh, look at that millimeter of the back wheel was over the blue line and taken 20 years to get rid of all these track times. I'm like, I don't find it fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't disagree with your rant. Austria and a handful of other tracks have put extra gravel in some of the corners. God, I can't remember the other track who did this a big time. But I love the fact that they put these gravel in these corners just off, the out of bounds line, if you will. So if you go over, you end up in the gravel, and now it's your risk. Now there's a chance you're spinning, you're losing time. It may pay off. But I like that deterrent. I like more of a natural deterrent versus a camera that's focused on an angle. And how in the world do you wait 45 minutes to say Hulks doesn't count? Because you actually cost, like you said, Albon a chance to run. It's one thing when it's real time and someone drops down the order. You actually disenfranchised another driver from being in Q2 because you waited so long to make this call. That was dumb. That was the part I really struggled with. The time and then the ramification of it. If it had been like, oh, he went from 17th to 19th, I wouldn't really care. I'd say it's stupid, fix it, clean it up. But you actually caused Albon to not get a chance to drive because of this. That I thought was stupid. And then the Mercedes penalties, I caught this. I don't know if you heard this, and I'm sorry. I'm going to forget the sporting director's name at Mercedes. He's out at his son's wedding. And so two people are filling in on the team, are filling in for him in that role. And they're the ones who sent the cars out when it was a provisional time to come back versus an actual time to come back to racing. And that's what cost them a penalty spot each. So next time you think about going on PTO on a Formula One team, make sure your backups are ready to handle your out-of-office duties.
Yeah, I thought they were going to say it was just a slap on the wrists and a fine.
I thought so too.
But as soon as they said that the safety vehicles were still actively moving around, you're like, they're going to make an example of you there. And they probably could have done more. They could have maybe said it was a 3-place. So I think 1 place, take it and move on. But yeah, I really enjoyed this quali session. I thought Oscar just looked like an absolute man on a mission. Loved the fact George got right up there and almost got it. And it was disappointing, obviously, for him to drop off the front row, which promoted Charles up there. But Kimi up there, like you say, Pete putting his Alpine up there was great.
Oh, and then we get to the race. And just about everybody started on softs, especially in the top, let's say, 12, with the exception of the Ferraris going mediums. And I'm watching this morning thinking, fascinating. Like, everyone's talking about 2 stops. Is Ferrari going to go medium hard and then try to go 1 stop? That's in my brain. I'm thinking, okay, are they going to try to make a 1-stopper work? Do they see some reason why lower fuel at the end of the race, the hards could go longer so the mediums don't have to do too much duty, but it'll get them off the line nicely? And I'm trying to figure this out in my puny little brain. And it turned out no one was going 1 stop. It was never on the cards for anybody. Instead, most people were thinking, is there a 3-stopper out there? And I'm like, dang, I didn't see that one coming. And so that was fascinating. But yeah, the start of this thing I thought was great. Just an amazing start.
If Lando gets criticism for a lot of his poor starts where he was on pole recently, then he made up for all of those. Just brilliant start today.
Yeah.
Just although maybe a little bit of a false start, as it will turn out to be, but let's just put that to one side.
By the way, the fact that Max saw that from his car and he radioed it in, you could actually, when they showed the replay, you could see Max in his cockpit looking over to the right at Lando. And then you see his thumb go down to the radio button. And it's the message we'd already heard. Lando is too far ahead of his grid box. Max they joked, he is becoming a champion who drives other cars. He's the new Fernando Alonso.
Yeah,
He's
yes.
Fernando. He's got his car under control. He's maximizing his car that no teammate can copy. And he's also telling you what everyone else is doing at all times. I'm here for it. I'm here for this Max Verstappen era at this point. I love it.
Grid box aside, fantastic start from Lando there. I tell you what, though, the lockup that George has while he's trying to defend the position, or he almost had a little look at Oscar, then realized he wasn't going to make it, so then threw the anchors down and got a lockup. If there are lockups that are on the cusp of any more and it's a disaster, but you've got away with it, he took it right up to the line of, you just got away with that one, my friend.
Yes.
He didn't actually lose anything from it. He locked up, and I thought this is going to be carnage, and then it's going to be like some big concertina behind it as everyone runs into each other, but it was all okay.
There were a lot of lockups, too. So much smoke coming off the grid at this point down into the first corner. And Kimi lost a spot to Carlos. Behrman, I still haven't seen it. He went from 20 to 15 in 1 lap. Good job, Ollie. I saw one of the overtakes they re-showed. Pierre went down to 5th. Like I said, Carlos.
Who, sorry?
Yeah, Pete Gasman. Carlos went up to 6th, where he talked about him taking Kimi. He had some great moves there. Oh, I just thought the first couple laps, which were clean, the lockups added to it, the overtakes took it. It was close racing throughout. I immediately forgot about Japan as this thing kicked off. I go, Japan what? Suzuka who? And so, and again, I love Suzuka. I think I love every track. Is that fair in saying? Mexico. I don't like
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico. We're coming for you, Mexico. The two creeps. And so I thought this was a great start and a lot of movement. And I started to get a little worried that we may see some tire management come in and kind of make this thing a lull. But the DRS, and I don't want to be the guy who says DRS is great, but it did kind of help us. It put people right into braking zones
this was
regularly at turn 1 and turn 4.
If you wanted a good example of what DRS was kind of invented for, then I thought it worked pretty well at this track. It wasn't a push to pass, gimme overtake, but it was just keeping people feisty, kept people honest. They couldn't go into tyre management. Like we had, I know we got a bit of a DRS train forming, but I don't mind a DRS train because if people are at least within DRS constantly, that's hurting somebody's tyres.
Yeah, agreed.
So it means you're going to get deg, you're going to get tyre strategies kick in, whereas like the race that shall not be named, when there was like 3-4 seconds between everybody was just hanging out in clean air going, well, let's just put this into autopilot and just just take it
and that
around.
wasn't this.
So,
and then
no.
It was fascinating too because there was so many people pushing. So we talked about Lando's good start. We'll talk about some moves he made at the end. We'll talk about some mistakes he made. And Brundle even said he questions Lando's racecraft this weekend and then kind of walked it back when he took Charles on the outside of 4 at the very end. There were a lot of people who had this kind of situation where you watched him. Carlos was one. Kimi was one where you're like, that's a clumsy move. And then immediately thereafter, you're like, they may be the greatest driver ever. And it was like this battle because they were just hanging it all out. On lap 5, Kimi took Carlos. I thought it was clumsy. He kind of came in fast. It was a bit of a dive bomb. He kept it on the track, ran Carlos off the track. And I realized how much I love turn 4 because it was at turn 4. I like the elevation change. In 2021, when we were at Bahrain and Max and Lewis were battling for the championship, turn 4 was a critical turn for them because they kept pushing each other off into that dip on the outside of 4. I love turn 4. I love the fact it comes after a long straight. I like the fact it's at the end of a DRS zone. I like the fact people go inside, they go outside. Any of it can work. There's no clear way to defend it. It's just a matter of how much stones do you have to put it on the outside, or maybe as Kimi started doing after this, going on the inside of 4 regularly became his move. I loved it. I thought it was a brilliant move. I thought this one was a little clumsy by Kimi. He ironed it out after that, figured it out, and turn 4 became his jam. But if we could do one thing, Rob, Bahrain's supposed to be a pretty cheap track to get to. Ticket, not flight. But we should go there and set up on the inside of 4 somehow and just watch for a while because it would make me happy.
If any really, really rich listeners want to sponsor next year's Dirty Side trip, you can come along and be a third host on the podcast. We don't mind that.
Not at all.
Then we got... Hajar came in. I was like, well, is this just because everyone went on the soft attack at the beginning and this just not going to last and everybody's going to do it? And then I was questioning, was he one of the ones that started on soft or was he... No, he did. So I was like, well, is this going to be what everybody tries to do now? But it's a while till anybody else comes in. So why did they do that so
I don't know. Do they have was it Japan or was it China when they went for the second stop and no one else did? And it was Racing Bulls, and they're like, what was the joke? They're on the dance floor alone, no one's joining them with the second stop. Well, what are they doing? Who's calling the strategy over there? They were 5 laps ahead of anybody else box. Okay, 3 laps ahead. But after that, it was 5 laps, 6 laps. I saw him come in. I'm like, does he have a trouble with the car? 7 laps is what you got out of the soft tires? Give me a break. But yeah,
maybe
that was it.
Maybe it's Horner. Kind of, it's not a good look if Hajar is the fastest.
He's
of the
too fast.
Drivers, so
we're going to need a 7-stop race. 7 stops, please.
So then, like you say, we kind of got a little bit of a DRS train. And I think it was lap 10. Well, I'm loving the way you've written your notes here. You have to pronounce Duhan because
Well, in lap 10, Jack Duhan on pits. And then Kimi got the gas man, Pete gas man. And then we started to see, at 13, we started to see most people pitting. So Lando, Gasly, Max pitted. Max went to hards, which was interesting. He was the first driver to go to hards from the soft tires. And none of the medium guys had come in yet, especially the Ferraris. So we didn't know what the hard tires would do. Turned out they were terrible. No one liked them the whole race. Even Lewis at the end, when they put him on hards, Lewis said, "These tires suck." That was his whole radio message.
Yeah, I know we got that message, but like I'm sure the commentary team were talking about how like lap time wise, like the Red Bull car really didn't seem to like the hards.
Really
so any information people got from watching the Red Bull like was actually pointless because actually a lot of the cars made the hard work. It was weird. It was weird how the Red Bull just did not get on with that tire at all. And then it was just kind of like, so how far are Oscar and George going to push this one? I mean, we're at lap 13 here when we were kind of looking at this, 15 when they finally pit. So 15. How'd y'all pitted on 7?
7.
More than double.
I mean,
more than double the stint.
Crazy. And as we're watching this, and yes, everyone was starting to box at this point, I was wondering, when will Oscar pit? The undercut can be powerful. Or is McLaren hanging them out? Are they making a strategy faux pas? And so we had Oscar and George still out there. George boxes on 14. Charles and Lewis follow. And they go... they're following those two. So they're on medium still out there. And then on track, it's Carlos, Alex, and Ollie Behrman, who hadn't boxed from softs from 20, was at this point, what was that, 6th or 7th? I'm like, what in the world is happening here? But yes, it was a matter of pit stops ahead of him. But yeah, like you said, then Oscar pitted on 15.
Yeah, and then at around lap 16, whenever it was, something happened. Some unnatural force hovered over the track.
An electrical interference of some kind.
Some sort of supernatural being that decided it was going to have some fun with this Grand Prix and start introducing gremlins all over the place. And its first victim was like, what shall I do first? I'm going to mess around with Red Bull's pit lights.
I don't know. I'm watching it. I'm like, why is Max not going? He kind of started to leave when they dropped his car down, and then he stopped. And then he's like, F it, I'm going. And he just left, and the light was still red. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And I'm trying to figure this out in my brain. And then you see Yuki box right away behind him, like a lap later. Same problem. And I'm like, what is happening? And so, something happened to the Red Bull lights at the pit lane, at the pit stop. And yes, like I think you're right. A supernatural force decided to mess with everything.
It's going to come back later when we start talking about some.
Anyway, Ferrari double stacked and went medium tires to medium tires. And I'm like, well, that gives you no options. You have to box again, no matter what. I mean, like, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, you're that afraid of the hards. You know the softs won't make it from lap 18 the rest of the way. But you've only used one compounded. It ain't going to rain. So you are coming back in. You made it for sure. And Charles is out there begging for strategy delta, and they're giving him Bravo no matter what he asks for. I'm like, all right. So
I thought they might have split the drivers. Do one of them, like you say, of them medium to medium and definitely have another stop and try the other ones on hards and see what happens. But then we have to give a shout out. And I know it's not a super all-conquering Max Verstappen in the fastest Red Bull going, but you and I have been shouting out Mr. Antonelli, young Antonelli, when he started chasing down Max. And I thought, how's he going to do him? And now, obviously, hearing your love for your favourite corner in all of F1, I'm thinking maybe
at least one of my favorites.
Are you going to have a T-shirt dedicated to this in Canada? Turn 4, Bahrain.
Maybe.
But that move, the move to force Max of all people
also
into where he wanted him to be, into the defensive position, then switcheroo with the extra grip that he knew he had, that is an old head on young shoulders. Because the obvious move for a veteran F1 driver like myself is to dive bomb the inside. But he knew he had the grip advantage. He just waited it out, switcheroo back, see you later, Max Verstappen. I thought that was such a good overtake from Kimi.
You know Max was pissed. I mean, there's no way he's not in that car just swearing profusely watching Kimi Antonelli, who still can't drive his actual car on the road because it has too much power in Italy. But he's out here passing Max. And it was a great move, and it was turn 4 again. But we'll move on. So then we kind of get towards the middle of the race. Charles is in 4th on fresher mediums. his second set of mediums, I would add again. And he's starting to make some time up. And you're like, okay, this is going to get interesting. Lewis is starting to look feisty on his mediums as well. On lap 22, he takes Doohan and then later Max. And you're just like, all right, the Ferraris are starting to come alive. This is fun. We get an announcement that Kimi and Isaac get a black and white flag for track limits. And around now, the electrical gremlin starts to come back because we're getting double notes on certain things. It seems like the announcers aren't really sure what's happening. They say Kimi and Isaac got the black and white flags. I, with my own eyes, watched Kimi go off the track after this by like a mile. No penalty. So I don't know if he actually got the black and white flag or if it's just Isaac who got it. The stuff on the screen was popping up and they're like, oh, that's a rerun of the one before. What? What are we doing? Was it a production issue? Were there aliens over the track? Is that why the fireworks went on for 4 hours at the end to get the aliens away from the track? I don't know what happened. But at this point, we're seeing track limits. The Ferraris are fast. It's getting wild. And Charles tries Lando the minute he gets DRS. I loved this. Charles, the first on the home straight, he gets DRS for a second, and he goes for a dive bomb, locks up, and Lando's like, good move, friend, and just takes the inside and says goodbye. The number of lockups that are going to continue was wild to me as well, but I loved that Charles is like, oh, I got DRS, I'm going to make this happen right now, bang, bang, and then just went flying off the track.
And there was also a rare spotting of a breed that we hadn't seen all day. The lesser spotted Oscar Piastri was shown on screen for a couple of seconds because for all of the, maybe drama's too strong, but for all the enjoyment of watching all this stuff unplay out behind, he was just serenely going about his business, driving off into the distance. And we saw him for a second, and then we went back to
and George was in second, and we didn't see him much either until the end, until his issues.
Well, we'll come back to that later. Yeah. So I've lost as to where we were. Oh, we had. I don't even know.
So at
where
this point,
we?
at lap 25, both Ferraris, as I said, were looking fast. At the exact same time, Hamilton takes Kimi and Charles takes Lando. And I'd like to apologize to Ferrari for bad-mouthing their medium-to-medium strategy because at this point I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Maybe these people are paid money for a reason. And they're just motoring on ahead because it seems like everyone's making another stop at this point. So I'm like, all right, it is what it is. And it was good. Like at this point, we're kind of at the middle. We got Oscar, George, Charles, Lando, the Pete Gasman, Lewis, Esteban, Kimi, Max, and Jack Doohan. And I'm like, look at Doohan doing his thing up in 10th. Look at Alpine with 2 cars in the top 10.
Yeah.
Kimi, rookies and the Red Bulls. Yuki was just out of the points at this point, but Max was 9th and hating his tires. Everything was overheating. He was hating life at this point. He was like, you could just knew when his finger wasn't on the radio button, it was nonstop swears.
Yeah, but it's okay because then he came into pit off the hards onto medium and, a beautifully well-oiled stop. He'll be off on his way and everything will be great in the world of Max Verstappen again. But it didn't really play out that way, did it? We got another bad stop for Max. What did you log it as? I didn't notice it.
7 seconds. The first one was 4 seconds with the light problem. This one was 7 with the front right tire problem coming off. And so, Red Bull, who's normally perfect at pit stops, decided this weekend would be a shambles. But that's okay because a couple minutes later, what ended up happening is Carlos and Yuki are fighting with each other, and it got really feisty. And a big old hole came out in Carlos's side pod at the end of this thing. And as that happened, debris went everywhere. No, not Nick debris, but debris was everywhere. And it wasn't a lot, though. It wasn't big. It didn't look terrible. And after a while, you kind of forgot about it. You're like, it's a piece here, piece there, piece here, piece there. Fine. No big deal. And for 2 laps or lap and a half, I'm like, all right, maybe they're not going to do a VSC. Maybe they don't need to go out and get it. And as I'm watching, I had kind of like come off the watch. Like I'm waiting for something to happen, VSC or something. Nope. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just going to race on. No big deal. It's not big enough to make it a stop. Full safety car. Like, where did that come from?
And even the commentators were like, maybe there's something we haven't seen yet. I mean, because if it's just for that debris, surely they could have just VSC'd that. There wasn't that much of it. And if everything was playing into the lap of Oscar this whole weekend, then this couldn't have worked out any better. I mean, this was literally, if Oscar got on the radio and said, if you are going to throw a safety car for that debris, do it about now, because I'm literally right by the entrance to the pit lane, so that'd be much appreciated. Thanks.
Right there. You're right. He was right there. Could you imagine if they'd waited like 4 seconds longer, and he was on the start finish line straight, and he had just passed pit entry, I think Zach Brown might have killed somebody. And so it was wild, and everybody pitted with the exception of effectively Max, who had just boxed, so he went for track position, which is the smart thing to do at that point. Kimmy, on the other hand, was like, I'll take a third stop, so he came back in for another set of softs. I was surprised Mercedes went out on softs on lap 33 of 57. Now, I know they had to run a few laps under the safety car, so don't really count those and take entire life off. But that's a long ask. 20 laps, let's say, for your softs to go. However, I get it. Also, fuel's burning down. It's a different car. And you're just trying to make it to the end. But I was a little surprised by the soft compounds, and I loved it. At this point, I'm watching the race. We go back out. We have Oscar leading on mediums, Russell in second on softs, Leclerc in third on hards. I'm like, all right, I have no clue what's going to happen at this point. It's like wild. Norris on mediums, Hamilton, the gas man, and Ocon on hards. Max on mediums at this point. To your point, we went for track position, and he'd already had his pit, and then Doohan and Sainz on hards. It was there was no rhyme or reason at this point. No one knew what to do, and I was loving it because we didn't know what would happen. So then we get the restart. This was probably one of my favorite restarts in a while, just from a purely aesthetic perspective. The camera at the end of turn one looking back down the straight as everyone is weaving to try to overtake, to get position, to get out of the way of others. The sparks, when they were off the racing line and in some of the bumps, some of the dirt, and as cars were getting faster, and they're using all their downforce, the sparks flying, the cars everywhere, a couple people locking up, just chaos on the track. It was a really good restart. Oscar did fine. He weathered the storm. Lando thought he could take a Ferrari, thought he could take Lewis, battled him, almost had him at 1, took him at 4, but took him off the track. He had to give that spot back.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a fun restart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then we decided that the aliens or the supernatural force decided that it was going to come in and break George's transponder. But have to give a shout out here. So Hot Circuit on Blue Sky, they obviously a listener because they know our little jokes about George being in witness protection, said, I didn't expect Russell's witness protection situation to be so serious that he will also then disable his transponder altogether just to maintain stealth mode. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's a good shout because we do joke about George going into witness protection. But so, yeah, this is the next part of the gremlin. And I'm going to jump ahead of a couple of things and we can come back to it here. But then we got to the part where it drove me nuts and drove you nuts as well, that they went, enjoying that timing board, are you? We'll see about that.
This is like the third time this season where we've had timing board problems. Most of them have been in practice or quali, I believe. But this was horrible. If they're not going to be able to show multiple battles or pop back and forth and explain what's happening and instead just follow one battle and no timing board, I see 2 cars out of 20. And I have no clue, is Oscar still in first? Is George still in second? How close are they? Is he pulling away? Or are they in DRS? Question? I had no idea what was happening, and they put that little thing in the bottom right where they could show the top 10 and some of their times, and it took up half the screen. And so they're showing the start-finish straight, and all I see is this friggin' graphic in the bottom right corner. I'm like, and I was grumpy old manning it down there. I'm like, what are we doing, fellas? And so, yes, you nailed it. His transponder went down, took down the timing board, took down everyone's DRS after that. What happened?
But yeah, it was all over the place. And then we're in this area of not knowing what's going on. Lawson gets a 5-second penalty for something.
Hitting Stroll, hitting Hulk, running someone off the track, being too cute with his blonde hair. No clue what his 5-second penalty was actually for. He then got a 10-second penalty later. Related? Unrelated? Same thing? Different thing. Doubling it up? Nobody knows. We have no timing board. We have no insight. It was almost like I was watching this with Braille at this point. And then Sainz got a 10-second penalty for a dive bomb lockup on Antonelli. Oh, and I know, again, Carlos is dealing with no side pod. He's got a side pod hole the size of my forehead. And as he's trying to drive around this track, God bless you, Carlos. You're making the most of it. And he did a really bad dive bomb. I mean, he locked up and he went way off the track. I mean, that was never going to work, even with a side pod. But and then they showed the hole, and he very quickly ends up retiring the car. And then we're like lap 46-ish of 57, and Charles and Lando are battling. And I loved this. It took many laps for it to get spicy, but it was occasionally interesting. 46 was the beginning, and this was kind of a rerun of before, where like, all right, I'm quickly in your DRS, and I'm going to go for it as soon as I can. And on turn 1, go to the outside, and Lando locked up so violently, he also went off the track. Had to get himself back in position, ruined his entire lap, ruined his chance of getting at Charles that lap. Took him time to get back. And finally we see a little bit of Oscar, and he is driving off into the sunset again. So it was fun. Like, again, 49, Charles and Lando are going at it again. Lando gets pushed off. He gets on the blower real quick. I was run off the track. Fascinatingly, I actually don't know where I sit on this one. And again, it's just one incident, but Charles looked to be ahead on the TV coverage, like the above, the camera coverage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lando, you didn't have that space. But on Lando's car camera, it looked much closer.
It did, didn't it? It was like, are we seeing like a weird angle from TV? I mean, once you saw the thing on Lando, you could totally feel why he got on the blower and when that was mine, because from his view, that totally looked different. But I think this 6 lap, or whatever it was, 6-7 laps that it took Lando to get Charles is what ruined any chance of him going after the win. The car was
or George even.
Yeah. I mean, I think if he gets both of those two, if he gets Charles quickly, the battle that we saw with George into the last 2 laps is going to happen 6-7 laps earlier.
Yeah.
And then he maybe gets a better chance at clearing George and can go after Oscar. Now, they might not have allowed it to get that spicy with.
I don't think he would have gotten that close to Oscar, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know. So if you go right back to the beginning when you talked about racecraft, these are some of the things that have been levied against drivers in the past of, this is the bit where you really earn your bacon, right? You got to clear some of these cars quicker than this. So I don't know. I don't know that Lando ran a bad weekend at all. The car was a rocket ship. One little mistake in Qualy probably cost him from being on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and then the 5-second penalty.
The 5-second penalty. I think he drove brilliantly to come back from that. But if I was going to get super critical, I would say this little 6-lap window is that he spent too long behind Charles.
I think you're right. And he made some moves that probably weren't going to stick and cost him because he had to regain that time back to Charles's rear bumper so that he could get him again later. But it was also around
he obviously had a quicker car at this point. And if we go all the way back to, say, little old 11-year-old Kimi Antonelli, the way that he kind of sized up Max pretty quickly, I know probably the delta between the Merc and the Red Bull at that time was different from, say, the McLaren to the Ferrari. But, Antonelli showed a level of maturity to wait for the right moment to strike.
Yeah.
And then even if that costs you, if you have to wait half a lap to make your move, well, to your point, if you mess up the whole lap because you've dive bombed something you were never going to do, you just... Yeah,
he's basically me in the elevator whenever I have to pee, and you just keep hitting the button over and over, faster, DRS. Speaking of DRS, at this point, the aliens gave us the timing screen back, but took away DRS for George and Charles. But we heard George had opened his DRS when he shouldn't have. And it brought me to another question that I didn't know you could do. You can just randomly open your DRS?
Question?
I thought it had to be within the zone for it to be activated, and then you had to hit the button. And so George, in the post-race interview, confused me even more. He said, hey, you know what? I had to remap the DRS, and we had to override it. And then I went to hit the radio button, and the DRS opened. Huh? Are you kidding me? Is this for real?
I was like, because he'd had gremlins were sort of saying he might lose his entire dashboard as well. They were threatening that they were going to move in and move.
Just keep driving.
Yeah, so we've got to remap it. I'm thinking, I don't even know how you can remap a Formula One steering wheel sat still in the car, let alone driving at 200 miles an hour and then like, okay, the knee bone's connected to the thigh
Tell
bone.
Me during the back straight, I'm too busy right now.
Okay, I think I've got it. Right, so this should be radio, and then DRS flap opens. Oh, yep, should have done that. It's like, what?
It's like an ejector seat.
It's like some sort of wacky races where he's accidentally launched missiles and he was trying to do an oil slick behind or something.
Exactly. And so then he says, but that's okay because I quickly closed it and then slowed down so I wouldn't gain an advantage. Huh? Like they're going to look at it and say, oh, your car was so broken that you didn't gain an advantage because you backed off what happened. That's crazy talk to me. Just crazy town. I love it. I'm here for it. Lando got a black and white flag for track limits. Like I said, Lawson was given a second penalty or a third or a first. We're not really sure for who or against what may have happened. There was a great battle for 8th. And again, this is why I enjoyed this race. Was it a great race? No. It was a good race. It was a fine race. But at 8th place, we got Ocon, Yuki, Behrman, Kimi, and Albon, all within DRS and all going after each other. You'd look at turn 1 and 2-on-2 are fighting, and Albon's in the back like, I'll take the scraps. And I loved it. And then they tell Lando, only use the DRS when you're sure you're within a second. What?
I love that.
Why? How does he not know? What? We live on statistics and timings and things, and you're just telling him to wing it? Literally?
Yeah.
Wing it?
Literally, they've obviously the gremlins have really taken over the entire show now, and they're like, yeah, whether it's George's transponder or whatever, we're going to have you're going to not get. Is it a little light that pops up when you're allowed to use DRS, I think, on the dash or something? Anyway, whatever it is that lets you know that when you're within a second, whatever it is, that's not working anymore. So just kind of like stick your finger out the window and see which way the wind's blowing and try to work out if you're within a second or not. If it's close, go for it. I'm like, what? How can he have to guess when he's allowed to use DRS? This is
crazy. And I'm sure we're recording this fairly quickly after the race. There will probably be some announcements on what actually happened. We don't know at this point. It has not been talked about. So maybe the last 5 minutes of DRS rant will be explained other than aliens, but I like the aliens idea. And so then we get to lap 57, and Lando is going after George. He kind of tried him at turn 1. He had to back out. It was a Hail Mary, and it ruined his chances for the rest of the lap. So I get his point. I would have, again, Monday morning quarterbacking, I would have liked to have had him set him up for turn 4 because get close and then go for it after that second straight into turn 4. But what do I know? Nothing is the answer because I'm always a misinformed creep. And so then the problem I had, I had a couple get off my lawn moments at the end, forgetting the timing box being gone for so long and the DRS issues. Oscar, who I quite like, ran a perfect race. And we watched him win in a tiny little box on the top left side.
Yes.
For a battle that wasn't going to give us any fruit. And I'm like, just give us Oscar. Lando's not getting George. We know this. We've watched enough racing.
If you're gonna do picture in picture, do it the other way around.
Yes.
Give us the little box of Lando trying to get George, even though we all know it's not going to happen now. And let's have Oscar have his moment in the sun as he or nighttime as he comes across. It was just that was poor. Didn't like that.
And then they give us Oscar as he's cooling down. And all of a sudden, the timing screen changes, and Max goes up to 6th over Pete Gasman, and we saw none of it. They just flipped it at the line. Like, did Pete Gasman have a penalty? Did he get passed? Was it at the start finish? It was right at the end, too. It went flipped and then checkered flag. But in reality, it was earlier in the lap when they showed us the rerun of it. It was like turn 1 or 4. I'm like, why didn't that change? So, again, get off my lawn. Then Doohan is given a 5-second penalty for track limits. When? We didn't see it. Don't know. Is this related to Antonelli? Did they get the drivers confused? Did Antonelli ever get a penalty? Because I saw him physically go off the track after they said he had a black and white. Wild. And then the fireworks ran for, seriously, 20 minutes. I mean, like, it's an F1 race. It's not the 4th of July in America. Like, let's take it easy.
It's not like the season closer either. It's like
it's not. It's not.
It's like the 5th race of the season or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
20 minutes, all grand finale. The whole thing was a grand finale, and they went nuts. Anyway, we had Oscar, George, Lando on the podium. I hope there's no DRS investigation into George for opening it when he shouldn't have. I hope there's no shenanigans from the stewards changing the result after the fact.
I was just checking out. It's still the same now as we're recording, but
I've been too. I've been refreshing as well. Nothing's changed. And then my last note on this before we kind of wrap it up with some thoughts is the cooldown room was the best one in a while. I loved that. First of all, the Japanese cooldown room was funny because they said, was that it in terms of highlights? Yes, that was it, Oscar. It's been quiet other times. This was great. George, Lando, and Oscar, they kept watching as a group. And when Lando did his lockup on Charles and they showed him going off the track, I think he said, "What a muppet." And they all laughed at him. And then when George said, wasn't able to push you on the restart, Oscar, and Lando's like, well, I wish you would have. I mean, the three of them, obviously George and Lando have been friendly for a long time, and Oscar is Lando's teammate, so they've gotten to know each other a bit. I thought that was fun. I could have taken that cool down room. If you'd given me 20 minutes of it, I'd have paid $50 for it. It was great.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So, what are we going to do? Are we going to fire up Pitlane Paul, or are we going to fire up our King of the Pits and the Pits Awards first?
Let's do the King of the Pits in the Pits and then get Paul's perspective as we close out the week. So, King of the Pits.
You're the king of the pit.
I'll be honest, it's rare I think of this before right now. When the music plays and I go, oh God, I haven't thought of who the king or the pits are going to be. I thought of this during the race because I couldn't figure out who I would say for either. Like I watched this thing. That's why I said it wasn't a great race. It was a fine race. It was entertaining. For me, I have to go Oscar for King of the Pits because he won, and he won handily, and he handled any challenger from the start and the restart. He didn't make a mistake, and it seemed like a lot of people were making other mistakes. So I gave it to Oscar, but I really didn't know who else I would give it to, is kind of the other reason I gave it to him.
So I'm with you that we stopped giving it to Max all the time in his season of domination because we were just desperately looking for someone else other than just keep saying how great Max was every week. So we stopped almost giving it to the race winner all the time. But I'm with you. I'm like, well, we're still quite early in the season. We haven't had any dominating. Like, surely Oscar deserves it, which is really, really unfair, I think, on Ollie Behrman to go from 20th to 10th and get a point, right? That is an absolute phenomenal drive in a house.
That's true. He's a worthy candidate.
So, but I have to go Oscar. He didn't do anything wrong all week. He didn't mess his qualifying run up. He got under pressure from George going, putting an absolute brilliant lap in. And he just hold my beer, put it on pole. And from the moment he put it on pole, he just never made a mistake. Like you said, he nailed the restart. He disappeared off into the distance. So for me, it's Oscar, but with a really, really close, sorry, Ollie Behrman, because you were amazing.
Good call. Good call on the Ollie Behrman. I hope people are sitting there listening in their cars, at home, at work, thinking of who you would have nominated. But we're going to do the pits now. And I'm still struggling with this one, too. But here we go.
You're the pits.
Rob, would you like to go first on this, or shall I?
I'm going to try. I mean, it's very rare that I can look at a set of drivers that have finished and really pick anybody out to say you were awful. Like, you know, Bortoletto, if I look at what I normally do is look at differences between teammates. Now, Hulkenberg did finish 13 seconds ahead of Bortoletto, but Bortoletto's a rookie and the Sauber's not very quick. And Hulkenberg didn't put it in the points either, so okay. You know, Stroll, but Fernando was only just 5 seconds up the road from him.
Exactly.
So I'm like, okay, Lawson and Isaac were kind of fairly close.
And Isaac got screwed with that strategy, and then they were trying anything again, Hail Marys. They were pretty close.
So I'm really, really struggling. So I'm really digging down and scraping right at the bottom of the barrel. I'm gonna give it to Mercedes folk that released the two of them into qualifying and led to their penalty when they shouldn't. So the Mercedes team, because they screwed their own drivers there with a stupid rookie error of letting them go out before the specified restart time, and that's the poorest pits award I've ever given.
Yeah, that is.
That's all I've got.
Well, I can top it. Don't worry, you're about to be top for the worst. The hard tire. It didn't come alive. Like no one liked it. Question when they asked James Vowles. They said, James Vowles, what do you think of the hard tire? We'd rather not be on it. Okay. So, yeah, man, I can't give it to Carlos. He had some bad moves, but he had some good overtakes too. He didn't finish. No fault of his own. Him and Yuki tangled. No one got a penalty for that I can remember. I agree with you. I looked down the list. Stroll. Did we even know he raced today? Not really. But did we know Alonso did either? Not really. So is it Stroll's fault? Not really. So yeah, that's why I said I didn't think this race was a great one. I wouldn't call it a banger. It was fine. It was a good for an F1 fan. It was a fun way to spend an hour and 45 minutes. But yeah, hard tire is all I got. I got nothing else. And with that, let's hear from Pitlane Paul. Oh, I almost played it without his music, Paul. I'm sorry, brother. we shall now hear from Pitlane Paul.
Hey now, live from Bahrain International Airport. And that was the Grand Prix. It was better, wasn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, the line was set pretty low from last week, but it was better. Quite a bit happened. Where shall we start? Anything really mad happened in the build-up to this weekend? I mean, it's only last week we were in... Where were we? Were we Japan? Yes, we were Japan. Then, I guess there was no real big drama. There's nothing on the build-up. It was sort of a slow week, I guess. I feel like I missed something there. I don't think I have. Anyway, whatever. I'm sure you guys will have yapped on about it. I've come on and completely dismissed a very significant moment of the week, but I'm going to just plod on regardless. Anyway, Friday practice. Did anything happen? No. And then we're on to... Where are we on to then? We're going to... Not Friday practice. What do we do? Qualifying. Yeah, Saturday. Esteban had a bit of a crash. The weekend was shaping up to be pretty low-key at this point, I think. Like, qualifying sort of went ish as we expect. I mean, Oscar was just sensational. We'll touch on that later. Great performance by Gasly. I thought that it's good for him. It's great for Alpine, obviously. We like Alpine, a good team. Jack showed some good form as well, so we're very happy with that. All in all, it was quite a promising qualifying. I mean, we joked about Lando. Lando under pressure, he's not good, is he? He's a bit jittery, I think, and I think it's going to cost him because Oscar is this super cool guy, which I guess I'll touch on in the next bit, which is the race. And I'll just quickly Ocon. Yeah, I mean that's a biggie. For an experienced guy, it's a strange mistake, but that's what happens when you're pushing. Ultimately, you got to remember they are on the edge of these boys, and that does happen. But for an experienced guy, we talk about the rookies, and the rookies are sort of handling themselves okay, I guess. So it's just a random guy started talking to me, not completely oblivious to the fact I was on the phone. Fair play to them. I think the rookies are really doing well. So let's go forward to the race because I'm blabbing. So the race, for instance, was I mean, lots of position changes. The thing with Bahrain is it was the first time when you really see where each driver is, I think. And the reason I say that is, the rookies have gone through Australia, which we don't really, we drive up once a year. The simulators are really good. China, Japan, some of them were driven around there before, I guess. But, when you get to Bahrain, they've all done F3, they've all done F2. We had the testing here at the start of the year where they banged out lap after lap after lap. So it's a really good marker of where people were. It was the first time we really would see drivers, I think, without no knowledge advantage, track advantage almost. So, nothing massively jumped out, I don't think. A few more of the rookies, I guess, performed better. But then there's a counterbalance. Should they perform better now? We're into the third, fourth race, wherever we are, fourth race. So they should be getting properly up to speed with stuff. But, apart from that, though, I mean, Mercedes made the mistake in qualifying. Silly mistake, put your hands up, fair play. You've got to put your hands up to mistakes. Silly mistake, only a place penalty. No complaints. Apart from that, that was sort of, that was Qualy. Sorry, we started the race, didn't we? I'm sort of backing forward a little bit here. Oscar, superb. If you're going to dominate a race start to finish, including the safety car restart, you can have no complaints. Lando, again, talking about pressure. That was stupid. Stopping outside his box. I understand the car rolls forward, but every driver's got the same thing. It's a silly mistake. He shouldn't have done it. For me, crazy. And then, good. Some good overtaking, some great moves. It was good to see some of the kids firing down and making brave moves. Kimi making a few brave moves. Yuki performed a lot better as well in the Red Bull. I think that's a really horrible car to drive. That's my gut feeling. Listen to how much Max, who is sensational, was complaining about it. So, I think a better Grand Prix. We go to Jeddah next week. I think Jeddah's going to be a really hard test. Again, I mean, I'm going to go back and say the rookies should be getting better. This is one that's going to be really brutal on them. It's fast, it's demanding, it's high speed. It's probably the most physical race on the calendar in terms of what your body goes through. So, yeah, look forward to that. I mean, it's the only thing to look forward to in Jeddah. I don't know if I've mentioned this in any of the previous years, but you can't get a drink there. Signing off for now, drinking while I can. Dubai, here I come. Ciao, Bella.
All right.
Awesome.
So I think Paul kind of was with us. Good race, not great. Fine race.
Yeah. Now, we have to do our casino game update. So, here we go on Bahrain. First up was roulette. We had to say who would finish in 9th. You went Alex. I went Isaac. It was Yuki. No soup for you. We didn't get that one. Blackjack.
And again, we said close doesn't matter because Albon
Close
was
doesn't matter on
12. And you said
doesn't
Isaac
matter in
14. I
roulette.
would have won if close mattered, but
You would have won if close mattered.
That's not how it works.
You would have also won Blackjack. Oh, you can't get any closer than this, Brian.
What happened?
You picked Lewis and Charles.
I picked Lewis and Charles, who finished 4th and 5th. Yes?
Question. So that's 12 points for Charles, 10 points for Lewis.
No!
You go bust, my friend, with 22.
No!
I had George and Kimmy, so I got 18 points for George. Kimmy didn't finish inside the points. I take the blackjack hand.
No!
22.
No!
Oh my gosh. However, 3-card poker. You had Stroll, Hulkenberg, Bortoletto. I make that Hulk and Bortoletto. No, you didn't. You didn't get anything. You Stroll and Bortoletto, right?
Stroll and Bortoletto finished 18th and 19th.
Correct. Whereas I had all of mine punctuated. Mine was Lando, Max, Oscar. None of those were next to each other. So you win the three-card poker hand. So we won each for this one. Last one was our bingo card. Neither of us covered ourselves in any glory here whatsoever. Yours were safety car. You said no. We had a ridiculous one for debris, but it still counts, so you were wrong on that one. You said the retirement in Q3. It was just into the 4th quarter when Sainz retired. I can do this all day. Who was the last driver to pit on their first set of tyres? You said Oscar. Both the Ferrari guys went longer, so I didn't even bother looking at it because we were both wrong. I said Alex, you said Oscar. I said safety car Q1, it wasn't. I said requirement Q1, it wasn't. No pole for you. Who finishes in 11th in Q2 and just misses out on Q3? You said Carlos. I said Behrman. It was Doohan. So nothing for our bingo card at all. So
Carlos finally made it into Q3 as well, and so I really messed it up. And you said Behrman, who didn't even get out of... He was last in Q1, so we both really posed that up.
Oh, yes. But,
well, we're often misinformed.
So, last thing to do, because we said we would try to do this a bit more often, is then to round out, unless you've got any other thoughts before I did stats.
No, I'm not doing stats this week because we're recording so fast. I haven't had time to put stats together this week. Apologies for the stat fans. It'll be back, I promise, next race.
So, stewards' investigations or whatever pending right now as we record. This means Lando Norris, top of the pile on 77 points. His teammate Piastri on 74 and Max on 69. So that's the top 3.
And can we just go to 4th? George at 63. He's the only one close because then it's 32 for Charles. So the top 4 are all fairly close. And kudos to George for having won nothing, but always being right there. And doing it with no fanfare except this race when all his electronics went haywire.
Yeah, if we look at, I'm just looking at the good old BBC website here, and it says Lando is first with 4 podiums and 1 win. Oscar's got 3 podiums and 2 wins. Max has got 2 podiums and 1 win. And then, like you say, right behind him, George Russell, 3 podiums, no wins. Just always getting in amongst the points.
Yeah.
What that means for the constructors is McLaren 151, Mercedes 93, Red Bull 71, and then Ferrari 57. They're kind of the ones that are in the same zip code.
Can you read 5th for someone named Brian Saperstein? Who's 5th?
Haas are 5th.
Who's 5th? I'm sorry, just if you could say it one more time for me.
Can we stop the count? Is that what you want to do after 4 races?
Who's 5th?
Haas.
I was right.
We don't give any prizes after 4 out of 24, Brian. But
you also know the team I was most worried about being fifth, and most people thought would be potentially Aston Martin, and they look terrible, and they're seventh.
What I was going to say though is that by Alpine getting those points today, after 4 races, we have no constructors that haven't scored a point this year.
That's awesome, and it's not a single point. Sauber have 6, Alpine have 6. I mean, we have actual points at the bottom, not a single solitary. Hey, look, we had someone finish 10th one time this whole season.
Right now it looks like the first 4 are going to be in a league of their own.
Yes.
Maybe it's too early to say it's just Haas, Williams, and Aston Martin in the next tier, because I do think the Racing Bulls can get.
I think the Racing Bulls look really feisty.
Yeah. And even Sauber are going to pick up the odd point. They might get cut adrift maybe, but I think we've almost got that block of 5 through 9 there are going to fight for things.
I agree. And then I'd say Sauber 10th. I agree with you. I think 5 through 9. And I think the Aston Martin is probably the biggest question mark in my mind, because they look so bad at some races where you're like, they could be as bad as Sauber. And then you're thinking, well, maybe not. And they still have Fernando Alonso. So Lance, I got to go back to the driver standings for a second. Lance has 10 points. And Alonso has none. So Lance has all of the points at Aston Martin. Yeah. And they were all in those first 2 races. The drivers with no points at this point, just FYI for everyone, Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, and Gabriel Bortoleto. I think Bortoleto is going to be struggling in that Sauber to get those points. I think Lawson, he looked kind of lost today, if I'm being honest, in that Racing Bull compared to Hadjar. The demotion may not have done well for him. I don't know. I don't understand what's going on with Fernando. Obviously, he crashed and then had a reliability problem in the races where Lance scored, so maybe that's just it. I shouldn't read into it. He did outperform him today. But I think Doohan is going to get a point at some point here. I think he'll be off the 0 in the next few races, is my guess, if he has a seat.
Talking of the next few races, to round out the triple header, one track that definitely never worries about track limits is Saudi.
Because there are no track limits because it's walls.
Correct. There is nothing that enforces track limits.
Actually, there's maybe one corner where you could cut it on the inside of like turn 1 or something in the beginning, where there is a corner. But that's about it.
Yeah. So it will be the 5th running at Jeddah, and dubbed the fastest street race in F1. It'll be a night race, 3.836 miles long, 50 laps, 27 corners. Last year, it was early on in the season, so we were still getting some Red Bull dominance, shall we say. So Max had pole from Charles and Checo. This is the one where, talking about things that overlap today's race, Lando had that big jump start. Everybody saw it on every replay known to man. Because the transponder wasn't working and didn't detect the movement, they couldn't penalise him for it. So
had George tampered with his transponder like he did with his today?
Eyeballs were not deemed a good enough test to see that somebody had jump started, so he got away with that. We had 2 retirements. Pete retired before the start of the race with a gearbox issue, and Stroll put a big smash on in lap 7 to bring out a safety car. And then this is the one that made me smile to remember about this. K-Mag accumulated 20 seconds worth of penalties. He was on the collect. He was like trying to get a free coffee with all these stamps he was collecting. I'm just going to keep collecting penalties. So much so that they then put him onto super defense mode to allow Hulkenberg to pull away.
And it worked.
Like a lot of people came out as haters. He shouldn't be allowed to do this.
I came out as a lover because not a hater. If you're talented enough to accelerate just perfectly out of any corner you could get overtaken out of, and then hold everyone behind you in the slower speed corners without like actually looking like you're weaving back and forth going 5 miles an hour. Brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. So we had a Red Bull 1-2, Max from Checo. Charles came in 3rd, and Ollie Behrman was making his Ferrari appearance due to the appendix.
I'm fairly certain he finished 7th. That's my memory speaking.
Yeah, he did.
That was an amazing drive. Because as you say, and as the commentators have said, as Paul said, Jeddah is a hard track. It is unforgiving. It is incredibly high speed. It's like a high-speed version of Monaco to some extent because of the walls, the high penalty. It's like if you took Monza and just put walls around the whole darn thing and then made the corners more aggressive. I did not like this track for a while because I thought it was a little risky having the walls that close. The drivers have acquitted themselves well over the years. I think one of the biggest crashes was your boy, Mick Schumacher had a massive one there a few
Yep.
years back. I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait. They're just going to head west across Saudi Arabia to Jeddah for this, to Corniche, and I can't wait to see them run this race. But yeah, I'm curious to see how the rookies do at Jeddah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to go back and look at the Rob versus Brian predictions that we did on our bingo cards. Surely we both said 100% yes to safety cars, and probably both of them in the first. We've both. I mean, you're going to want to wait. You've said safety car Q2. I've said safety car Q1. As in, like, it is going to just probably turn one.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Let's just quickly do. While I'm on this page, we can come back to the previous winners now. As if you want to play along and look at our casino games, then we had 14th was the roulette table. You have Alonso. I have Bortoletto. That seems massively optimistic.
I'm feeling
not
good.
quite sure
You
why
should
I
be
did
feeling
that.
bad. 14th feels right for Fernando.
It does. It really does. Blackjack. You've got Isaac and Lewis together.
It might be. We'll see. Possibly if the strategy works.
I've got Charles and George, which means if they repeat what they did this week, I'm going bust next time. 3-card poker. You're looking for Lando, Oscar, Max, which we thought was going to be the order this time, and we were wrong. I've got George, Kimmy, and Charles. And then, like I say, on the bingo card, you've got safety car Q2, a retirement Q1. You've got Ocon going the longest on the first set of tyres, and Behrman being the 11th and not making it into pole. I've got Q1 safety car, Q2 retirement, George to do this all day, and Isaac the one to just miss out. So that's kind of those.
Quickly, fantasy for this week is still calculating, but it's now to provisional. So let's at least talk about what we have, and if anything changes, we can come back and revisit next week. But to close it out for Bahrain, in first, Nothing, Just an Incident by Ryan. Ryan, you're going to get the sound effect.
Just an incident.
Nice job, buddy. Yank the Mic. Nice job, Michael. Second place tie with Kevin, lost my V-carb, and Michael Cronje switched to plan B. Michael is an expert, so a lot of people up there who know what they're doing. In fifth, Andre with Kia Racing Team. Sergio, no fuel. And then in seventh, a large tie, which will just close us out for this week. People who played the template. That includes me. Gavin, Bartek, Brian, Rob Beaumont, who's our Formula Fantasy Hub friend, Naya, Asir, Andy, Dahan. How many people played the template? A lot. That was like 10 people who played it. We all got 212. So, that was apparently a big idea for a lot of people. And I got to be honest, fantasy's trying my patience with the budget building aspect, the algorithm, and the template emerging. I don't know. Where are you at with fantasy?
Is there a template emerging? Because I was just kind of thinking you've got 3, maybe 4 constructors you can go for. You've got multiple drivers that are at the sharp end. It's not like a Max Red Bull like it was a couple of years ago. Like, there's still, I think, quite a lot of choice up there at the moment. But that's because I'm ignoring all this budget building crap that I can't be bothered with. So I'm just picking from what I want as a good lineup. And it seems you don't know where the Ferrari's going to finish. You don't know where George is going to finish. You don't know which order the McLarens are going to finish in. Nobody really can probably afford both the McLaren drivers and the McLaren constructor at the moment. So there's not, I don't know, maybe I'm not paying enough attention, but it doesn't seem a nailed-on template yet.
A lot of people saw that template, the one I'm referring to. Is it the template? No, I'm just calling it that, but it's getting close. Andy...
It didn't win.
No, it didn't, but I was, 7th? And I was only 10 points behind, and I built budget. So it did win. It may not have finished first.
But did the people ahead of you build budget as well?
Probably not as much, but we'll find out after this week. Because I went for a lot of the guys who were going to get this 0.6 million increase. Andy Tails.
I can't be bothered looking at all that.
I know, you're a very delicate flower. Andy
I know,
Tails.
like I said, I'm not playing fantasy algebra.
And I'm going to try this a third time, Andy. Andy Tails. Tails, I win first place in the league overall, followed by Roman. And then Sigma, Andy, Gavin, Renato, Sergio, and then myself to round out the top 7. So I made it back, although I'm really close. Patrick right behind me by 1 point. But yeah, so we guess we'll find out. If anything changes, we'll let you know. Otherwise, that's fantasy. Rob, anything else for this episode before we close for the week?
No, just the only thing, because you took us back to fantasy before we'd finished Saudi, we didn't do kind of who's won what. So there's only been 4 run-ins of it. 2021 was Lewis in the Mercedes. 22, Max in a Red Bull. 23, Checo in a Red Bull. 24, Max in a Red Bull. So we've never had anybody but a Red Bull or a Mercedes winner.
I don't think it's going to be a Red Bull, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, where is that car going to come alive versus where is it going to be a bit of a dog? Bit of a dog in Bahrain, but it won in Japan. So, yeah, we'll find out next week.
Sounds great. Everyone, thanks for listening. We can't wait to talk again in 1 week's time as we wrap up the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Be well, be safe, everyone. Take care.